Y'all ready? Okay. We'll call to order our special meeting for our planning committee. Next item is if anyone's here for public comment. You can come to the podium and give your name and address, and you have 2.5 minutes.
And they can come during the regular part too.
Oh, okay. Can they? He's asking if they can speak after this.
I checked
Any?
before. We can have the folks from the county, and we can have people from the 10 mile
Like if we have questions, you mean?
speak and have questions and discussion.
Okay. Alrighty.
Good morning. I didn't expect to come up here right away like this, but here I am. My name is Jerome Van der Horst. I reside in the 10 Mile community, 1039 Theodore Road in 10 Mile, and also I'm a member of the Phillips community. We are in support of the town supporting us with the overlay, with 10 Mile needing the protection of the HBC, which we have in place, and county council. There really are protectors agencies to help us protect the area. I identified this problem like 3 years ago. I was in the Wando Library in Mount Pleasant, and I recognized Ms. Liz Bowes, one of the personnel was there, and I brought it to her attention. On my street currently, the house has been there for about 6 months now. Brand new $1 million house, and I noticed a house being built, and I said, wait a minute, this house didn't come in front of the HBC or county council to get built. So I did my research, and I found out that the workaround, again, I told Ms. Liz Bowes and Larry Kowalski about this. The workaround was what they were doing is annexing into the town of Mount Pleasant to keep from coming in front of those boards. And I talked about this many times, so here we are. We're finally trying to do something about that problem. So I think there is like 3, and Mr. Ed Pinckney can correct me to this. I think there's about 3 new subdivisions that has and done the same thing. And we tried to stop them, we tried to fight them, but some people told me that there's nothing we can do about it. So because you can't stop somebody for billing, but here we are again. We're finally trying to do something about the problem, and we appreciate that you guys are looking into it because we want the land. We want the land to be there for the next generation. We don't trying to stop growth, but we know we got to embrace it. But we want smart growth. We don't want to be wiped out of the community because our ancestors left the land there for us to enjoy and for future generations that come behind us. So if we get overran by $1 million houses at some point, $2 million in the area of 10 Mile community, what's going to happen to those people that can't afford to pay those higher taxes? And I wish we can do something about taxes for the elderly because they can't afford to pay those taxes once those big developers come in and build those massive beach-style housing that we have right now. In fact, the houses in the area do not even match the kind of houses that's originally that was built there. So again, we do not want to be wiped out, and we really appreciate the protection that Mount Pleasant is trying to help us because some of the settlement communities like 10 Mile, Phillip, Hamlin, 6 Mile, we've been here before these people came. And I hope there's some people that sitting in this room other than myself and Edward Pinckney are from the original Mount Pleasant people. Because what's going to happen when we get all these, if you get me for saying this, when we get all these Yankees and these the Californians to come up here and wipe us out, what's left? So we don't want to lose our identity. We got something rare and special here at Mount Pleasant, so we want to keep that going.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
Next. We just need a name and address, and you have 2.5 minutes to address the committee.
I'll be very quick. Would you all mind if I give you these copies?
Thank you.
Everyone?
Appreciate it. Thanks. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We're good. We can share.
Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Edward Pinkney. I live at 3768 Robbie Glover Road, Owendale, South Carolina. Good morning, council members. Thank you for the opportunity to review the 10-mile community overlay framework with you. The purpose of today's discussion is not to advocate for or against development. It is to explain the structural reasoning behind each component of the overlay so that if Mount Pleasant chooses to replicate it, it can do so faithfully and effectively. 10 Mile is a documented historic African American settlement. Over time, the community experienced what's been described as jurisdictional misalignment. Areas with the same cultural geography being developed at different densities under different standards. That misalignment created incremental pressure, increased traffic, drainage strain, altered lot patterns, and perimeter intensification. The overlay was designed as a structural response to those patterns, not as a reaction to a single project, but as a framework addressing cumulative impact. What you will see in the documents I've handed out is that each section has three parts. First is its policy purpose. Second is the focus area that makes it structurally important. And third, the real world mitigation issue it was designed to address. We've learned that density caps alone are not enough. Form standards matter. Lot ratios matter. Impervious coverage matters. Traffic triggers matter. Boundary integrity matters. And consistent application across jurisdiction matters. If any one of those components is weakened, the framework exists on paper, but the outcome shifts in practice. The overlay is not anti-growth. It is growth management aligned with infrastructure capacity, environmental conditions, and historic settlement patterns. Our goal today is simply to share what we've learned through the experience so that replication, if pursued, preserves the structural integrity of the model rather than adopting it in name only. We appreciate your willingness to study it thoroughly, and we look forward to walking you through any of the sections. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Okay. All right. If we have nobody else, then we'll begin our discussion of the 10-mile overlay zoning district.
Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. I did want to first introduce our partners from the county. So we have Andrea, she's the interim director, and Emily, she's planner 3, senior planner with the county, and they were both integrally involved with the county's process. And so they're here to answer any questions, to weigh in on anything y'all might have. And otherwise, Liz is going to take it away.
Run us through it. Okay. Well, thank y'all for the opportunity to kind of get back into this and to have a little more time to deal with some of the questions. So a lot of this is going to look familiar, but I hope that's okay. So timeline of how we got to here. And one thing, as I was going back over this for today, that I realized I had left off the original slide was this pretty important point right here, which was 2018 is when the county adopted their historic preservation ordinance. So that's the point in time when they established this system for, designating historic areas in the county and having this historic preservation commission to review development applications that happened in those areas. So that's kind of a key point as we're looking toward what we have going on. So again, talking about what
Liz, could you go back to the one?
certainly.
Okay, good. Thank you.
So in the Mount Pleasant area, I'm just rehashing for sake of making sure we're all on the same page. Obviously about 10 or 11 settlement communities in the area, but there are 3 which have taken the steps so far to become Charleston County historic districts. And they're all a little bit different in kind of where they are in the process. So I just wanted to run through that a little bit. So Phillips Community is a Charleston County Historic District, and they have taken the step of becoming, of applying for and receiving recognition through the National Register Historic as a National Register Historic District. That in and of itself doesn't put any particular criteria on the development in the area. It's an honorific designation for that community. They have done a community survey, and they're beginning to work with the county now on development of their own overlay. So we might be having a similar conversation with them a little bit down the road here. So that's ongoing. 10 Mile, of course, here we are. They are both a Charleston County Historic District and they have the 10 Mile Overlay District in place. Also of consideration is the Hamlin community, which has, of course, the county's historic district designation, and they are in the process of getting signatures required to submit their area character appraisal to the county in the next couple weeks, we hope. We'll see. But so within these three communities, development activities have to go through the county's Historic Preservation Commission, as was being described a little bit earlier. So just kind of context. So that Historic Commission, as I said, reviews the development activities that they're looking at within the context of the county's ordinance requirements. And the overlay district and the area character appraisal are steps that the communities themselves, with the county support, of course, are taking to refine the criteria for their district. So 10 Mile has worked really hard for these years to define what they want for their community, and that now the county's historic district can use that as part of what they're looking at as they are applying that as they look at new development approvals in that area. Back to so here we are. 10 Mile zoning district as adopted by the county establishes use regulations. This is a map of the district and the different land use categories within that. And just we have talked also about so how does this relate with the town's documents and efforts in these areas. There are a number of things that are covered in the 10 Mile Overlay District that do relate back to what we've seen in the past with our Settlement Community Task Force, trying to address some of the concerns that have been previously identified with the flexibility of housing types, with the need for sidewalks, historic preservation, so forth and so on. So this is in keeping, in many respects, in keeping with what we've been talking about for years, that we need to make sure these communities have access to. So what we've talked about is, do we adopt a similar zoning? You've all seen the copy, the red line draft of the code where we are. Obviously, it'd be lovely if we could just pick it up and plop it in and say, no verbiage changes whatsoever, but it's not practical because, for instance, the county's code references county code section, blah, 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 blah. Well, that doesn't do us any good. So we've had to go through and make some adjustments there. So if it's, instead of addressing the county's sidewalk standards, it references the town sidewalk standards, that sort of thing, just because we can't apply the county standards directly like that. So anyway, but most of it is, we've changed a setback here, we've put a standard there. It's a typical overlay district. But there were just some things I wanted to point out as we're going through this that are different than what we currently have in the town code, which is fine. But I just want to make sure you, as an adopting body of this, are aware of what we've got, and so that going forward, nobody can be surprised. So ADUs within the overlay district do not have a maximum square footage. Signage and street names, I'm not going to dwell on any of these unless you have a question. Signage and street names within the overlay district have to be approved by the 10 Mile Neighborhood Association. And my understanding is that's, either an approval letter or at least, signs of that you've asked for an approval letter. We'd have to figure that out, I guess, what that exactly looks like. But that's something that is in the overlay. That's not something we typically do, but it's something we could figure out. Within the land use categories, the recreation and entertainment outdoor, as defined here, would be an allowed use on commercial properties. Just, again, something that within town codes has more levels of control and approvals before we get to outdoor activities like that. Workforce and affordable housing. The county's code in general and the overlay allow density bonuses if you're doing workforce housing. This is something that the town in the past has done, and we have a little bit, in the commercial areas that you're all aware of, where you can up your density a little bit if you have workforce housing. But I just, again, want to make sure that that's clear, that that's what is being proposed here. So within the rural area, which is essentially the left-hand side of 17 as you're heading out within this district, you would be able to have those sorts of densities if you had 100% of principal dwelling units qualifying as this sort of housing. You could go up to 4 dwelling units per acre. Within the urban suburban area, which is essentially the right-hand side as you're headed up, you'd have these sorts of densities. And within these areas too, you would have the ability to do duplexes, triplexes, and quadplexes as workforce housing, with a special exception. So there would be that level of approval required. Within the overlay district, you could meet these sorts of densities if that was approved through special exceptions. But again, I imagine the intent is to allow housing that meets other needs than what is currently being built in those areas. And then the stormwater requirements. The overlay defines this district as a special protection area, which is something the county, as a tool the county uses to allow different types of stormwater control measures in those areas. And we don't have anything that's exactly analogous to that, but just again, pointing that out. That would be something we might need to change a little bit just to meet with the rest of our codes. But those are kind of the potential talking points that, as far as I'm aware, from an ordinance perspective in terms of the conditions. The one other thing that we will need to figure out is the boundary of the district. The county, of course, crafted theirs so that it contained properties that were only in the county. And there are certain properties that, as we've heard, that have already annexed into the town in the vicinity that were part of what was initially their historic district that was approved some years back. But between the time the historic district was approved and we got to the overlay district, they had already annexed into the town. So, of course, anything that we adopt will apply to only town properties because that's who we are. We can stick with their boundary and just go forward from here. That's certainly an option. Their overlay district boundary.
Which is the one on
Which is the one with the circles, the ovals around certain properties.
oh, okay.
The ovals around the properties show areas that are not in the overlay district, but are in the historic district. So
What is 10 Mile see as the boundaries, and in the discussions with county, what do they see as the going forward?
I have not had that conversation.
Well, we can ask that question. I'm sorry. We can ask that question later.
But that's just something to think about is in terms of applicability of this ordinance going forward. It would I can see it being similar to the Sweetgrass Basket Overlay District in that, you know, when it comes into the town, the town's 10-mile overlay is applied just like that. That other one is. So that would capture anything going forward pretty neatly. But that, again, that's a policy decision. It's not mine. But I'm just pointing out what some things to consider.
I'm sorry, can you go back to that?
yeah.
I'm
Oh, I'm so sorry.
confused about what we're talking about. So the one with the red boundaries is the
Historic
county
district.
historic
They're
district.
both county districts.
Okay.
So they first established a historic
This
district.
is theirs, and
Yes.
then the circles represent what is ours that is currently in the county zoning overlay district. What is our town property now? No. Okay. What it's so
almost.
explain the circles
Almost.
again.
Okay, I'm sorry.
No, you're
Yeah,
good.
It's confusing. That's
Yeah,
why we need to
yeah.
talk about it, right?
Perfect.
To make sure we're all on the same page.
Great.
Okay. So, for instance, when was the historic district approved? It was 22.
Okay.
Okay, and then the zoning district was, and y'all are backwards. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
From what I'm looking at, the one with circles was approved just a few months ago. So there's a 3-year gap in there.
Okay.
In those 3 years, some properties annexed into the town.
Got it.
So they couldn't very well include them in the county's overlay
Okay.
because they were already in the town.
Mhm.
And that's most of them.
Okay.
Most of the circles. There was one circle down the bottom circle. I believe the individuals who own those properties didn't want to be included in the overlay, so they were exempted by the county. But they were part of the historically designated community through
Okay.
so anything in the pink has to go to the county's Historic Preservation Commission for
Okay.
approval of development plans.
Mhm.
And the multicolors over here, these new zoning overlay district rules apply to them on the map with the circles.
Got it.
So it's almost exactly the same thing, but not quite. There's a few things that annexed in
I think I have
make it complicated.
I don't have.
Okay. Yeah, that's why we need to talk about it because it's, so, and this kind of talks about that issue is, okay, development on those county properties goes through the historic districts or Historic Preservation Commission, which is comparable to our HDPC or DRB or an architectural standards review commission, public commission, public meetings. Without a comparable review process, there's a concern, as you heard earlier, that residents from the community would annex into the town simply to avoid that review process.
Right.
Because that's, I mean, it's a big deal. Going through that review process is is challenging.
Mhm.
Any review process that's public. Building a house is challenging, but so questions that we need to also figure out is, do we also form a historical commission to implement this overlay district? Do we, what does that look like? And an awkward thing about this, kind of along the lines of what you were just noticing, Ms. Whitaker, is that, all right, we have, let's say, half a dozen
Mhm.
properties in the 10-mile area that have annexed into the town. We're going to have a whole commission for something that's going on half a dozen properties?
Can they still not go to the county because we're technically still in Charleston County?
That's a good
Like
legal
the-
question.
Like
Yeah.
the county's still technically in Charleston. Mount Pleasant is in Charleston County,
I
and just have a
couldn't agree.
person from
Yeah.
staff represent Mount Pleasant.
That's what I'm thinking. The
I
whole idea of the
think
joint
that
commission.
would be,
Yeah.
if I got, to wave my magic wand, that would make a lot of sense. But I don't know, I'm not a legal person to be able to answer that question, whether that's something we can do.
The answer is no.
No.
Ah.
Could we put like a appointed staff
There he
member
is.
to like represent Mount Pleasant, and then it's
But
legal?
I still think they're making, they're enforcing decisions. We're going to have significant issues, of course. I think that's the ultimate answer. To begin with, we have to consult the county to see if they'd be willing to do that. And I think we would all come to a conclusion. Now, to see that.
And then further, the historic commission, the county historic commission is made up of people from all over the county,
Correct.
right? Making decisions on something they may not have been to, right? Like they may have
Theoretically.
never been to the
Yeah.
10 Mile community.
And an
How do we feel about that?
added layer that Andrea just can speak to more is that if I'm in the historic district, an added layer is that if I'm in the 10-mile zoning overlay, I still have to go to that county historic preservation commission, but they are not just reviewing criteria out of the zoning overlay. They are reviewing other design criteria that we don't necessarily have either. So you can have this identical zoning overlay, but you
Right.
still have the commission and you still have extra criteria that they are reviewing. Is that correct, Andrea?
Well, like Mr. Vanderhorst said about the like and kind houses design have been outside of what the community wants. Like they're beachy houses, they don't fit the community. So that's what
Which is
the historic commission would enforce.
So
So
Okay.
He can speak.
Historic Commission, Historic Preservation Commission also.
you need to go to the
Podium.
Sorry.
Mr. Mc-
for the virtual attendees
Okay.
and the recording.
Mr. Pinkney.
So again, Edward Pinckney. One of the things that's very important is we mentioned it briefly, but the area character appraisal. So to really understand, the Planning Commission oversees the overlay, but the area character appraisal is a jurisdiction of the Preservation Commission. And the area character appraisal for each of the individual settlement communities kind of defines that architectural standard. So even though the Preservation Commission is made up of people from around the county, once the area character appraisal document is adopted, they understand essentially the design of that community and what those residents have essentially voted for and understand is acceptable now and going forward.
Okay.
If that makes sense.
So I have a-
Yeah, go ahead, because I have a question.
So
Go
if we could, is that not something that could be part of our current DRB for the parcels that are in the town? Or would be in the town going forward? Can we not make that a part of our existing
Well,
review?
It would
DRB's commercial.
That's right.
Good.
I'm just trying, like, if we wanted to match at least the area character appraisal, which body in our town could do that? Which existing body, if any?
there would well no, I was gonna say, I mean, there's also
Could-
the HDPC, but
Yeah,
they're
yeah.
focused on the old village,
Right.
which fine, similar
Yeah.
sort of thought process. But again, then we're dealing with who's serving on the board, and are they equipped to understand and representative of the communities that they're looking at
But one of those two potentially existing bodies.
in theory. Yes.
Existing bodies
In the town.
or a new body, correct.
It seems that if we had established design standards that staff, that couldn't be part of plan approval, that they meet certain criteria. Just the way we do setbacks and square footage and heights and
Again, though,
a porch or not, or,
I don't disagree with you, but there's still that loophole of people not being required to go to a commission.
Right.
And they're just getting a staff level
So-
review.
Mm.
So there's that gap that is still a concern.
I mean, for me, I'd rather modify our existing HDPC
Mhm.
because the Old Village is certainly not the only historic area in town, as has been discussed. And so the fact that they're focused on the Old Village to me doesn't really, I don't love that we're basically prioritizing an area of town over different areas of town with that body. So, that's my thought there.
Liz,
But
you,
I understand
expand.
it would take somebody that has, I understand the current makeup.
There would
and
have
all
to be
that.
some
Yes.
adjustments.
but
Liz,
it- but that's my thought.
give the history of how the old village got changed to historic district and why the reasoning how that happened, not only with the settlement communities, but in general, why there was a change.
Well, we did. I think what you're referring to, Mr. Tinky, is several years ago after the 2019 comp plan, we did do some ordinance adjustments to the HDPC. It was Old Village, whatever.
It was
They
old
keep
village.
changing
It
the
was
name
old
of it.
village. Yeah.
That body
Mhm.
that, and it was in anticipation of this. But we just didn't know
Haven't-
when and how and what it was going to look like and
So-
so forth. So I mean, it's certainly could very well be done that way.
So, Catherine, it was changed to Historic District
Mhm.
Preservation Commission, Old Village. Likewise, there's other areas of town. There's Old Mount Pleasant, so it could be Historic District Preservation, Old Mount Pleasant. It could be Historic District Preservation Commission, 10 Mile, and the idea is that, and people, I live in the Old Village, so it's a historic area, just like you do too, and so we don't want people from off, on I mean, I'm just being honest with you. So we, in our guidelines, it says only one person can be from off, and so therefore you have local people determining what local people have. So you have an historic district overlay for the area, correct? And that's and I'm asking the county that, or the historic district overlay for the county, that was in the red or the yellow.
So
The red.
we have two things. We have the historic district itself,
Yeah.
which is adopted under the historic preservation
Right.
ordinance, which sits outside of our zoning ordinance.
Right.
That's separate from zoning. And then a few years later, 10 Mile came in and worked with us to create the overlay zoning district, which is a zoning aspect of things. So when the Historic Preservation Commission looks at things, they're looking at the criteria for the 10 Mile, for the historic district that's in our historic preservation ordinance. We make sure that it meets all the zoning requirements before we even take it to them. And then they look at those criteria to make their decision. I know 10 Mile is working on an area character appraisal, and that will help inform even more the Historic Preservation Commission's evaluation of those applications.
So what would happen is that you would have a 10 Mile. Would you have a 10 Mile Historic District Preservation Commission, 10 Mile essentially, so that they could govern themselves versus?
No, they have it's the whole
I
county.
understand that, but are you working towards that or
No.
not? Okay.
How many properties do we have in the 10 Mile that are in the town? Because I feel like I see several annex requests on the monthly meetings.
We do get a number of requests from 10 Mile and Hamlin and Phillips
Right.
each month. I'm afraid I don't have an exact number, but it is roughly anything that's on the map with the circles that's not gray. I mean, excuse me. Yeah, that's not colored, that is gray in that vicinity. So the circled areas, like up at the end of Chandler Road, there are a couple of properties, not Chandler, next to Chandler, that annexed in between the time the historic district was put in place and the overlay district was put in place. The properties that we've dealt with recently along 17, right there in front of Carolina Park, that have recently annexed. For instance, there were some neighborhoods that were developed in there prior to any of this happening, either of these happening, that had annexed in. So those have not been included.
Yes, sir.
Just a simple point.
Can you come up? As we're looking at this, can we think about, we have many different areas of town that have property owner associations, brickyard, et cetera. We have some that have property owner associations. We have some that don't, both like Old Village, but both of which have historic or ordinances and guidelines that give them extra layer of protection. In each case, they're governed by the Brickyard Community Association or Old Village Community Association. So I'm at a loss to understand why. I'm more interested in what 10 Mile wants. Does 10 Mile want to have their own? You have a group already. I've been to your meetings where you govern yourself. That we talked about signs earlier, but it would be more of the historic overlay. To me, that's what people would want. But it's up to y'all. I mean, tell me what you're thinking.
So I think one of the main perspectives of 10 Mile is what is most legally defensible. So that's one of the reasons we work so closely with the county, is that we see that even though we have or we come to many of the council meetings, unless we have an overlay adopted, what is legally defensible when it comes to a developer challenging that rule, which is why we would prefer it to be handled at the town level, is because we need something that's actually helps preserve the character, the boundaries of the community from incremental, incremental development throughout the years. So that's really what's most important, is just having that legal structure in place. And I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say one of the things that this map, if you can see the map on the left, I believe it's your right, that's red. One of the things it doesn't denote effectively is the donut holing that's happening to the historic district. So the community that's on Beehive is the Bees Crossing community, not to call any specific community out. What happens is a developer in anticipation of development joins Mount Pleasant for higher density standards. And that's why there's such a high intensification of the Bees Crossing community in comparison to the rest of the community. And that happens right now. I believe there's a 10-acre tract that Mount Pleasant Council dealt with recently that did the same thing. So the historic district deals not only with that issue, but many of the other properties that join Mount Pleasant do so because of the water and sewer requirement. So in order to join water and sewer, they're essentially being forced to join Mount Pleasant. And that's incrementally eroding the historic district boundaries, which is something we're trying to preserve in the district.
Let me give a finer point on it. On the zoning, you have a zoning ordinance, but you have an historic overlay, correct? And the historic overlay is going to give more to the character, which I think you call it a character analysis, right?
Yes, the area character appraisal. Yes, sir.
Okay, so if we don't have that and we adopt the zoning, but without the character analysis for the 10 mile, we leave a giant loophole.
Yes, sir. So
Okay.
the overlay itself would define the dimensional standards the homes are built, the density patterns, but the area character appraisal essentially defines the style of the homes that exist in that community. So the two have to work together in order to kind of preserve the character.
And we decided
Last month at the last town council meeting that we're going to continue to defer all these annexations until we get this in place. I mean, I guess that's everyone's vote, so it does.
There was a property in the Phillips community that was deferred.
Okay.
The Phillips community is pretty far away from adopting any sort of zoning overlay. So you're right. We did defer it. That deferral expires at 6 months, David. So the only one that we are actively working on right now that has a current zoning overlay in place is 10 Mile. I don't know that we deferred anything there or not, but
Going forward, as of this point, again, Jerome Van Dor's 1039 Theodore Road. As of this point, going forward, and we know the problem that's the reasons why they're doing annexing to the land into the town of Mount Pleasant for various reasons. One reasons again is for that HPC not to go in front of that board, and also because of the sewage criteria or benefits. So going forward, if the land falls within the red historical district, and I buy a piece of land today, I want to be able to tell us if I'm on inside of the committee, tell that person that bought the land, now you will have to go in front of the HPC in the county to get approval. I think that's a request to tell somebody that's buying the land, trying to undermine the system that we have in place, still have to go through those criteria. Now, could we write something into the ordinance, Mount Pleasant, to tell that person that you got to go in front of this board? You can't walk around. You can't use loopholes. You can't undermine the system. Can we do something like that?
That's a legal
I think that was the no, because we can't defer our jurisdiction to somebody, or
Even though they're in the county
Right.
and part of a county overlay, historic district. They're not required to answer to the county at all once they come into the town.
yeah. So that's the rub.
the only way to maintain what is being spoken about is to not I'm just being upfront.
Sure.
The only way to maintain
What's
this
happening.
system and this process is to not annex these properties
Or
into the town.
establish our own.
Or establish our own zoning
So-
overlay, establish our own design
it.
criteria, establish our own HPC.
Yeah, that's what we need.
So we
Yeah.
all
That's-
the same.
To
Are
me,
we cur-
that's what this is all about. And I'm curious, growing up here, I think there's so many similarities in each of these settlement communities. I mean, how different are the folks in Phillips going to want to be from 10
Yeah, they
Mile
will.
and from, do we really need that many different
Yeah.
things? Or can the
Yeah.
town
Yes.
find a string of similarity that we can
let
live
Ms.
with,
Yeah.
that we
Speak
can
to that.
impose?
So Just
And-
speaking from a resident, all these communities were designated, staff, please correct me if I'm wrong, but based on the comprehensive plan, they designated Gullah Geechee communities as being culturally significant. Therefore, 10 Mile is very similar to Phillips,
That's what I'm talking
which
about,
is
the
we're all
similarities.
connected.
Yeah.
So essentially, once one area character appraisal is adopted, if you adopt 10 miles, every other community, that's a template for every other community
Yes.
going forward.
It's a
That's
template,
what I
but are
feel
they
like.
going to adopt the same?
It won't be exact, but it'll be 95%.
But could they
But that's
create
what
a
I'm saying.
commission?
I mean, we
Create a
Mount Pleasant-
commission with those people, like the residents that live in those
members
communities.
from each community. I mean, if there's so much 90% similarity in what they want, I mean, the town doesn't have to completely mirror what the county's doing, but if it's so 90% similar and it's something that we can string together. I mean, we've done a lot with lowering density. Like, we don't approve R4 neighborhoods in historic communities anymore. We just haven't done it. We've kept it at the lowest density possible. So I feel like, but that's has been the current council decision. That could change with an election. So for me, the design standards and land patterns, all that, those are the things that we haven't been able to address, because you end up with these cookie cutter lot sizes and houses, and you ruin the character. So for the town, the easiest thing would be to find what's similar and put something together, have a commission, and sort of mimic what the county's doing.
Let me ask another question. I don't know if I asked the question well enough. If you're 10 Mile and you have the new zoning in place and you have the character analysis, so you have those two pieces, which we don't have the second piece yet, but you have those two, and 10 Mile wants to apply to do the zoning and have the historic, the character analysis. Are y'all? Do I hear you say you're comfortable going to a countywide historic district commission that's represented by all over the county versus having one for 10 Mile that's uniquely focused on 10 Mile?
That's a good question. I think, well, correct me if I'm wrong, but lately I think the HPC that's in place now is really an added protection for us. So they've really been working with us.
Okay.
So it's nothing wrong with having another layer, though, if you want to put something in place for Mount Pleasant to protect us even more. And also, I was just sitting there thinking, until we figure this all out, is there any way we can do a moratorium to hold off permits being issued? So if somebody bought a tract of land right now and then come to you tomorrow for permits and application, can we do a moratorium until we figure this out?
We have
Does-
one. Yeah,
It's
it goes till July,
Okay.
Yeah, we have one till July.
but it only applied to more than four.
That's exactly
Yeah.
where we're going.
Yeah.
We have that in place now, but
And
it's
we
only until
will
July
vote in July
because of
to
this
extend it?
conversation.
Extension.
Yeah, extended. I guess we can. We've done it with others.
Okay.
Until we get the zoning straight. Yeah.
So it will come on the agenda.
Where is the for the
July,
county? Where is
July,
the character analysis? I know you're waiting on some things from the different communities. I understand it'll be 10 Mile first, then Hamlin second. So I'm trying to think of a timeline, and this answers the question of when we deliberate and people come to us and want an annex and do different things, we have an idea of when that process is through, and then we can also figure out what we're going to do to try to mirror either the zoning, the character analysis, and the conundrum of just a few people coming in and having a historic commission when they only have 2 or 3 properties that are there.
So none of our historic districts have area character appraisals adopted with them yet. That is something we learned along the way that we needed to help our Historic Preservation Commission to evaluate applications better. I know 10 Mile is working on theirs. So when theirs is ready, they'll submit it and it'll go to Historic Preservation Commission and then on to council for adoption as part of their district. Hamlin, as you saw, is getting really close to theirs. So theirs will go through. Phillips is a little different. They have a really good list of contributing resources. So does Hamlin. But Phillips is also a National Register community. So they have a little more information. So when we get these area character appraisals, they'll go through a process to be adopted. And I think that'll help inform the review of applications by our commission.
And Mr. Pinckney, do you have a timeline on when that is going to be ready to go to the county for adoption? I know you're working on it.
We will have it. This is what, February?
Mhm.
Okay, we'll have it by first week of April.
First
Okay.
week. Great. That's helpful, I think.
And then Hamlin would be to follow because they would want to mirror some of that and have uniqueness with it.
Hamlin's is ready already, and
Hamlin's
they're getting neighborhood signatures to submit it to
Okay.
the council.
Okay.
It's already written.
Well, to our very qualified staff, you've had a lot of time seeing these types of things. How would you think are some good solutions so that we could allow to avoid these people annexing just to get around the different guidelines? How could we mirror this as much as possible? There may be some things, as you outlined,
Yeah.
Ms. Boyles, earlier, that we look at,
Right.
but to the extent we mirror it, what
Well-
would be the things?
Short term.
Yeah.
You don't have to annex them.
Well, that's what
I mean,
we're
if-
not doing.
And
We're
if
not
they
doing.
have applied for annexation and are denied, they can still get sewer.
Right.
If it's
they
available.
deny, can they re-request
Yes.
later?
Yes.
I think that's.
So
I think
that's-
the
I mean,
thing to
that's-
do.
Right there. It
I
leaves them
just-
under the county's jurisdiction.
That's
It-
easiest.
That's the
Yeah.
easiest.
Well,
mean,
that
it may
gives
not
us
be the
time
most
to come
powerful,
up with
but
the real
it's the
answer.
easiest.
To come up with the real answer, we can do that.
But you got this. It seems
de-
like that would.
Defeats why we're doing this. I mean,
Well, I mean, if
we want to
It goes-
protect these areas. That's first and foremost. But we also want them to annex into the community.
Well- Well, we may or may. Yeah, go ahead.
If possible, to close these areas. So when we deny, then those places will never become part of the town. Basically,
it may or may not, to Miss Crosby's
Yeah, well,
point. I mean,
chances are, once they're denied and they have what they want, they'll never
well, when they
never be
decide
part
they
of
want
the
a
town.
trash can one
So
day, they may.
I
change
just
their mind.
I feel like we need to, I don't know, not take years to get this done. I've talked about this for a long time since I've been on council, that I wish we had some
Well,
overlay.
yeah.
And I feel like the town can just come up with our own, something that,
I'll be curious. I appreciate,
Yeah.
the thought process of trying to get the various East Cooper communities together and see if we can come up with something that works.
they
I would
have
be
in
very
common, the
curious to see
commonalities.
how that would go, because what I've been told repeatedly, there are many similarities between the communities, but there are many differences. And they do not want to be treated as one unit
Right.
across the town.
Right. No, that's
so
why
that's what
they should have
concerns me about saying,
representation
"Oh,
on the
you're all the
commission from
same."
each, not all the same,
Well,
but
to
whatever
come up with one set
is,
of standards. Yeah.
whatever they agree on
So what would
can
it
be
look
part
like?
of ours.
Sorry.
Yeah. That's
What
all.
would it look like if we expanded our current historic commission, and then also what would it look like if we had to create separate ones for the three communities?
Mr. Tinky's concern is well stated in that there aren't that many properties to be able to create these commissions. So envisioning it would be expansion of what we already have with change of the membership requirements, a basic set of consistent rules, and then perhaps separate supplemental rules for each community is the only way that I can suggest how it could be
Well,
effectively
Well,
accomplished.
I have two thoughts on that. So right now we have a map, and the map. If we can agree on what the map is between the county and the town, within that map, there's the properties that have been annexed, and there's properties that haven't been annexed. So I'll go back to Hilton Head and Charlie Frazier just a second. He said the biggest mistake he made is he created different groups because the different groups fought with each other, Wexford, Sea Pines, Hilton Head, etc. So they're very different identities. So to me, if you take that 10-mile area and proportion it, you have a situation where you have board representation. There's already a community association in 10 Mile. and you have and have a subset of that that becomes a subcommittee or whatever for governing it. So then it goes to that. So you'll have people that are on the town, that are in the town, and people in the county, but they're in the overlay district. That way you have, you're basically having the community work together within that area and have to talk to each other. Now that may be too difficult, may not be able to be legally sustainable, but basically you have the 10 Mile governing itself, whether they're in the county or they're in the town.
But I think there's maybe I'm misunderstanding you. I think there's a concern with abdicating town government responsibility to a group of citizens.
We could have staff there just like we do with this. It wouldn't be any different than historic district. It wouldn't be any different than
Except that that's an appointed
But-
town commission, not
Yeah, but
governing themselves.
it also sounded to me like you all preferred the town level overlay because of
The
the legal
ordinances.
defensibility. So,
Yeah.
Yeah.
which would be beyond
Okay.
their own.
So,
that's what it sounded like.
Perhaps.
Yeah.
Here's
Yeah.
just let's continue this conversation. We have in our ordinances, we have a map of the Old Village Historic District.
Right.
Here's our historic district that we presently
Right.
have a board to administer rules over. We could take the pink maps for each of these districts that have been approved by the county. The 10 Mile, the Hamlin, the Phillips, and anyone else who comes down the road in the future. Utilize those. Maybe there's a working group of representatives of each of those communities to figure out how to incorporate those into HDPC similarly with their own sets of standards. But that's going to take time.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, they could be just like HDPC in that you've got the map, we've got the boundaries. Inside this boundary, these rules apply.
So the
And-
simplest thing is
Completely different criteria.
just to
though, for
deny it
each of
until
the-
we get it done. But
It's-
we
yeah.
also want to we don't want to just be I think we want to get expedited because we've been, as you've said, this was our settlement commission in 2019 was that when it finished. And so we've been at this for a long time and we're going around in circles. So can we get 4 or 5 different solutions down and look at those and beat them around and see how we could do it in consultation with the county? Let's have a working group with the county. Let's sit down with the county and have a working group and just come up with a solution and have representation of the settlement community there so we can avoid, at least move it forward.
I'll just reiterate the solution that seems most likely to me, but also to your point, Mike, would move us forward, is, in my opinion, the expansion of the HDPC and trying to change the membership makeup of that, include this with these boundaries, get the area character appraisal from 10 Mile first. And so then that would be our guiding light, in some respects to this community. And then as the others come on board, again, kind of wrap them into the existing body. That is my preference, and I do think it moves us forward.
Yeah.
I understand it's a lot of work, but that would be my
Well,
thought.
I think structurally it is the least amount of
Okay.
work.
Great.
I think that is the best, in my opinion, the best and most functional way to do this. Of
Yeah.
course, on the other hand, as
Yeah.
Mr. Tinky said, the old village especially, all of these communities are going to have a group of people, not necessarily who live in that
Right.
neighborhood, making historical
Mhm.
decisions for the betterment of those communities, not their neighborhood.
Yeah.
And I think one of the concerns that I've had legally over the last decade and a half is that the what it used to be the old village, it has essentially functioned as a neighborhood HOA, and we need to not be in that business.
Yeah.
We continue to go farther down that line, down that path, excuse me, and in a way, this would help solve a lot of that.
Yeah. And it also mimics what the county currently does. I mean, the county has this commission that applies to multiple areas. And to me, that's what ours should also
Yeah.
be.
That's
within
what I
the
was
town.
saying. Can
Yeah.
we do something for? Is there a way for a commission to have committees?
Well, any commission can have subcommittees.
So
Right.
then they could have
Well-
subcommittees of
that can provide reports to the
To
commission
the
itself,
body and then
because
to
you
the
need
council.
quorum and all of those various requirements. But certain decisions can be made by committees. Generally, it's the best for committees to perform reports and in-depth study and bring
then
it to the commission.
Right.
I mean, if you look at our Old Village dockets right now, there are months where we have 15 items. I mean, they're long, and now you're about to create, not you, but
Yeah.
what you'd be about to create is something significantly more. There's going to have to be a way to streamline that, and that may be one of them.
Yeah, to have
Yeah.
to have like subcommittees that represent each area. Now for our moratorium, we applied it to what, 4 acres or more? Is that or for subdividing? Oh, 4 lots. It wasn't acres, it was lots. And we just did that to mimic what the county was doing. But we could do our own that was like any property that wants to annex if we wanted to go that far. We didn't have to match, like it was that way when it comes in one spot at a time. It could be part of the moratorium because right now, like we've had one person asking,
Do you
and they don't.
Do you mean any property in any settlement community or in any historic?
Historic. I'm
That's
just saying,
what we
talking about
applied it to.
size.
Okay.
Maybe we could make it smaller than what we've got going currently
The moratorium?
Yeah.
In
in July. Like if we want to extend that.
I don't want to avoid that. I'll review those options and advise town council. That's not something I want to opine on
And
in
can
a
we,
public meeting.
can we bring this discussion back to the next planning committee meeting before it goes to council?
Oh yeah, yeah, that was the plan.
So I would just,
A learning.
Andrea, is there anything that we have missed or that as you think about your process and we bring back some possible 4 to 5 solutions or expanding HPPC, is there anything that we have not thought of or talked about that you're like, whoa, wait a minute, what about this?
Now,
Hey, council members, might I say something? Andrew, I'll wait.
No,
I'm
that's
sorry.
okay. Thanks, Ed. One thing that we do that if you're within 300 feet of the historic district or within the historic district and you have a subdivision application or you have a site plan review application with some exceptions, of course, those also will go to our Historic Preservation Commission. The subdivision applications go to Historic Preservation Commission just for them to do a report to Planning Commission on whether or not they feel that the subdivision proposed is consistent with the county's cultural resource element of the comprehensive plan. And then it goes on to the next Planning Commission meeting for a final approval because state law grants them that authority. Site plan review applications to HPC, the HPC has that authority. So I think that's really all I can think of.
Andrew, that's terrific. Can you provide that language,
Yes, sir.
please?
so these commissions would be advisory to council?
No.
Not at all. They'd be making their own decisions like DRB does.
Like HPPC does.
Hey, council members, might I ask a
Yeah.
quick question? I'm sorry. I
Yes.
believe you're talking about now is the Historic Preservation Commission for Mount Pleasant.
Mhm.
Is that separate from your planning commission?
Yes.
So one of the things we saw throughout the entire process is that it's imperative that you adopt the overlay first, because without the overlay's adoption, the Preservation Commission really doesn't have legality to fight and defend these communities. So if we were to recommend the first path, it'd be overlay adoption, because the overlay adoption will first allow some of those development pressures to be mitigated. And one of the things we like to say is, like, if you turn to page 3 of the document that I gave you, this will be a very quick example. Mr. Vanderhorst is actually in the back, and he can point these 3 developments that have happened in the 10-mile historic district. So you have Seafood Subdivision. It'll just point that out on the map. That's at the bottom. Yeah. So you have Seafood, you have Watson View, general area, and then you have another one in the Gadsdenville area. So what happened is, unless the entire of the overlay is adopted, developers will see ways around the Charleston County ZLDR. So for the zoning and land development regulations. And what we saw was that instead of having one massive development based upon how the ZLDR was written, they had 3 separate LLCs develop 3 separate large parcels. That way, they didn't trigger the traffic impact study with the accompanying site mitigation and infrastructure improvements, which is why we're saying we really need a holistic approach, and it needs to adopt entirely of some of the overlay structure, because each level was designed to mitigate against something in the real world that we actually saw. Earlier today, we talked about the stormwater provision, and that was because what we saw after development was that we had massive stormwater overrun for the local ditches for the original residents. But that was supposed to be accounted for in the initial site plan. And much of that wasn't done because they didn't trigger some of these levels, because they went under the levels like 5 acres or a certain number of vehicle trips. So we're really thinking that the overlay is probably the most important thing, and the holistic adoption of it to make sure that we close many of the loopholes that currently exist. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks.
You brought up a good point that Liz brought up before, that we do need to maybe save for the committee meeting, but the list that you had was excellent, and the wetlands was an excellent example, and the flooding that you just mentioned is an excellent example. You've got the Hamlin Liberty Hill that's built a seawall, a huge seawall, and we had nothing to do with it. The county had nothing to do with it, but the state did. So, and that huge seawall has got to be deflecting water on either side of them. They've not only put in a huge seawall, they've filled it substantially to the seawall, so they're higher. And so those types of things, and you've got Hamlin right by it, and this is a critical area that we have to look at as part of this. And so there's other areas that other ones that you listed, but that's the one that's the most egregious to me.
Yes, sir. And sir, if I could just point out again, if you look at your map and you see the Seafood Road, one of the things that we saw that was for the OCRM line, the incremental development pressure as you get close to that line, even though it's technically allowed, we would love a way to mitigate against some of that development. One of the developments there is a community called the Overlook. And what happens now is that even though we fought against these initially, because what happens during a King's Tide is they're effectively cut off. They have one road in, the road is under about 2.5 feet of water. There's a marsh on one side, there's the intercoastal waterway on the other. And if they miss the road, they go into the intercoastal, and that happens. So as they get closer to the OCRM line, they're seeing many of these accidents. So we'd love a way to protect the wetlands, the OCRM line, and maybe back that off. That way these residents are in a livable place once these developments are actually stood up, because they don't know this coming in.
Is that part of what the county's doing?
We have standards for from setbacks and buffers from the critical line. And did they increase theirs in the 10-mile overlay? I don't remember.
No, but they did put the special protection.
Yeah. So we have that setback, and then within that setback, there's a buffer from the critical line, and that's across the county, and including in the 10-mile overlay as well.
Well, the other thing I think would be helpful I don't know the answer to it. I'm sure it's just standard construction, but it'd be nice to know from the state the reasoning behind permitting seawalls to be put in when an individual property owner can't put it in, but this whole development has a seawall on it. So it'd be interesting to see how that understand from the state, because we can try all we want, but if the state just goes and gives permission to it, we're neutered. Anyhow,
Well.
Chairman. Mr. Chairman.
So, am I cutting anyone off?
No.
Just that is on. So the way we have the overlay structured at this point, fixing the few little references to town codes or whatever. I mean, do you want me to change anything in here in the draft that we've talked about specific to the overlay? We got the
Yeah.
whole.
I have
historic-
a question about the ADUs. So the ADUs, you mentioned they wouldn't have a height requirement, but they would still, of course, have to be approved if they're in the town within our ADU limit. We have a wait list for those, right? Right. so I mean, I understand that we're
Yes.
not putting a height restriction, but they would still
There's
have
no
to.
square footage restriction.
I'm sorry, square footage. I'm getting it mixed up.
Is it-
Square footage restriction. They would still have to be on the list to be approved to get an ADU.
Yes.
So there's still some. And short-term rentals even longer
Yeah,
list.
yeah.
Understand. Yeah.
I don't
or
believe
banning. I don't know if
STRs
they
aren't allowed in the overlay.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't know how y'all feel about the square footage. I mean, to me, that's not again not overly concerning, but did want to kind of ask about that.
Yeah. No.
Well,
I
No,
just want to make sure.
Yeah.
You know.
Sure.
The bonus densities, all the tri.
those
Yes,
All
I'm
the
okay with
same?
that.
I'm not, but
Yeah.
of course I'm not.
Yeah.
You talk about 18 units an acre, my hair goes on fire.
But that's
mean-
a very high level of affordable
Yeah,
before
but
you get to
still,
that number.
I'm just
Well, that
not into that kind of thing. So I'm going to have to stew on those little details, or even no limit to the size of an ADU. I can see a developer buying some lots and doing crazy things, making sure they're putting 2 houses on every lot. That's when I say there may be just a few things about this that the town can't live with, that aren't that impactful, but they do matter.
but nothing
for
at this
the
point that
town.
we're certain we need to change. We want to have further discussion.
Not in my opinion.
can I follow up on your question, Laura? I thought it was a good one. I think that if you look at the
This is insane.
unintended
don't allow it.
consequences, are there any unintended consequences? You've seen how people, you just talked about how people got around situations, buying 3 lots, doing different things, etc. Are there any unintended consequences if you were the developer, put the shoe on the other foot, and you use these new zoning things that would allow things to happen that you really wouldn't want to see happen?
I wouldn't want to see happen.
You wouldn't want to see happen. In other words, you're relying on the neighbors and the people and all that, but if it's sold, and then they said, well, this is great, so I'm just going to put in a whole lot of density here, and you went, well, that's not what we wanted,
Exactly. That's exactly not what the community wants. And one of the things we did in our overlay is we have a width to length ratio.
Mhm.
So essentially, if you were to come to the 10 Mile community, they're more street facing homes than depth homes. So if you think about that, that's what you typically see in downtown Charleston.
Mhm.
The homes are very deep but narrow in the front. And what we saw happening with new subdivisions is they wanted to replicate that same pattern. So we started to institute that type of criteria in our overlay. That way it wouldn't change the character of our community. So we balance a lot of it between the overlay and the area character appraisal to hopefully mitigate against some of those development pressures that developers come in and try to change the overall feel of the community itself.
I have one other question, Liz. The stormwater,
Mhm.
it sounded like the town does not have ability to kind of do the same thing in terms of enforceability or the requirements or all of that. So
Right.
to me, I'm wondering if we take that extra out of ours, again, because I don't want to have to create something new that we don't currently have. So I think we've got appropriate kind of reviews of that thing anyway. I don't think we need to necessarily add something there for the additional stormwater restriction requirements. So that would be my only suggestion there, because again, it didn't sound like we had the ability to really do that in current state.
Correct. That's
Okay.
my understanding.
Okay, so I would remove that.
If there were a subdivision of property, 1 to 2, whatever, our stormwater engineers would be reviewing.
Right.
There's no impervious surface coverages out in that area, but I think that's part of the
And
overlay.
yeah, I was about to say, yeah. Okay.
So the overlay zoning would put in place impervious surface coverages, which we don't currently have in that area. And then if there was a subdivision of land, our engineers would look at the stormwater
Mhm. Yeah.
impacts, and they would have to mitigate that. So that would be our process.
In the building to area ratio, it's 40, the largest is 40%, but does it also allow other, in the case of 40%, and when you could build the accessory dwelling, does that go into the 40%?
There's not
No.
a VAR out here.
Okay.
It's 40%.
There's a building coverage.
There's a building coverage that's 40%.
Yeah.
It is.
So, yeah, so we have across the board in the county for lots that are less than 30,000 square feet in size. We have a building coverage requirement, which is really just the footprint of whatever structures. And then we have the impervious surface, which is those plus any impervious surface, driveways, sidewalks, patios, that kind of stuff. In the overlay itself, the building coverage is 25% and the impervious surface coverage is 30%. And I just wanted to address in a similar fashion, the accessory dwelling units. We used to have a cap of 800 square feet in the urban suburban area. This is across the county. We took that away across the county back in 2021 so that the lot coverage and the building coverage would control the amount that could go on a property. So that's not just specific to 10 Mile that we don't have that limit. That's across the county, as are those the affordable housing incentives. Those are countywide as well. And then just one last thing to address the question about building along the critical line. And I should have
Mhm.
thought of this earlier, but didn't. We also have larger minimum lot sizes and larger minimum lot width requirements, and then also very different requirements for accessory dwelling units if you are building along a property that is frontage on a critical line. So we do have those standards in addition to the minimum buffers and setbacks. So.
Thank you.
When I
I have a meeting I have to
Oh.
attend to a Zoom meeting in about 5 minutes, but I wanted to bring this up. It's so imperative that you guys adopt the 10 Mile overlay because we faced a lot of pushback from the HPCs. Once the HPC, well, wrong terminology. Once the HPC approve or disapprove the building of someone's structure, they appeal. And we lost so many battles with the folks appealing it, and they won through the county. So just get ready for that if you establish your own HPC, and please adopt 10 Mile overlay because that's going to give you the teeth to bite back. Okay, so thank you.
thank you.
If they
Okay.
appeal, it goes to BOZA in the town, or would it just go straight to the court?
If they appeal HVPC,
Circuit court.
So the community is comfortable with 18 units an acre. I mean, that does not match the character of.
No, that was the first time I think we've seen that.
Yeah,
So,
that's a no. That's a
that's-
no.
yeah.
I feel like if we're going to do affordable housing in Mount Pleasant, we need to keep with our whatever rules Mount Pleasant is using, and not have a different criteria for these communities. Because I can see these areas, if it's higher density than we allow, they'll be consumed
Absolutely.
by affordable housing.
Absolutely.
So it doesn't need to be more than what Mount Pleasant already allows.
What was the reasoning that y'all were
That's crazy.
in approval of that? You say
For
The 18 units an
the
acre.
density.
the 18 units.
Yeah.
I'll look through the overlay. Let me actually.
Mm-mm.
It's right.
That's a no.
currently in our whole zoning ordinance.
Yeah, no.
And in order to get there, you're going to have to do an alternative housing type, and that's going to have to go to the Board of Zoning Appeals in a public meeting. So there's a whole
Still.
process for that. Just, but the overlay does
I
allow
can
for that as a potential process if
Yeah.
someone were to apply for it.
That's just one piece that Mount Pleasant should keep that uniform so that, like I say,
So-
they don't take over these areas and turn it all into affordable
And
housing.
I thought you might have wanted it because,
No.
to have a place with more affordable housing, which we need, and to keep families in the community and the rest. And if that was the reasoning, then I would understand it. I just didn't. I just wanted to make sure that
So for at that level, it's honestly never been discussed. It probably relates back to a county ordinance.
Mhm.
So we will actually review that and take it to our community, and we'll probably put it back before county council to have that amended. That density is it is too high for our community.
Mhm.
So, and that's one of the things that you have to essentially go through adopt the entirety of it because there's so many of those small loopholes that you have to look at to make sure it doesn't overrun the entire community. But thank
That's
you all for pointing that out.
Yeah, that's definitely a loophole that people will take advantage of if Mount Pleasant doesn't allow that density, but these historic overlays do. That's what it will turn into. Oh, okay.
All right. So we'll take out the stormwater, and
why are we taking out stormwater? Just so I know.
because we don't have a similar process to what they describe.
But do we have a process to address
Absolutely.
stormwater?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, we do. We
Okay.
just we will refer to our own process
Okay, got
instead
it.
of the
Got
county's
it.
process.
That's it.
Same with
Okay.
affordable housing.
And then,
Well, do you all want, so we'll make these few changes, we'll come back to the regular committee in March, but then this will require a public hearing. This is the new zoning ordinance. So, for process, do you all want to hear it at committee? Do you want to get direction from full council, or we can decide that, but we'll bring it to you at the next committee meeting. And then either it'll go to full council for support, back to the commission for public hearing, or you all can send it straight back. However, I don't know if there's a preference or it matters, but eventually we'll need to take it to the planning commission because this will be a new zoning code ordinance.
Before you do that, one
Yeah,
last
we need
question.
detailed
On the
work.
overlay, does that address trees, and does it address noise?
Yes, sir. It addresses both. So so the noise, there's a
I didn't
noise.
see it. I didn't see it anywhere in
It
there.
would, it would, if it's
in
not
the town.
specifically addressed, it'd revert back to our
Town.
code.
Okay.
Oh.
Thank you.
I'd like for them to see what the town does as far as affordable housing and density, the community,
Absolutely.
so that you can compare what's being
Nothing.
proposed versus what
We
we do.
Don't
No,
do
right.
anything in
Thank-
residential areas.
Okay, just commercial.
Yeah.
I thought we had something,
No.
some affordable
Yeah,
housing,
you can-
thing,
if-
or we
no.
did away with what we had because we said it wasn't exactly legal or something.
We can,
we
there's
just-
incentives for increasing density if you're doing it in like a redevelopment, right, of a commercial. And you
In a
wanna add-
commercial
yeah.
mixed use redevelopment scenario.
But that's it.
Oh, okay,
Yeah, there's no, we don't have any.
we did away with it.
Yep.
Okay. Okay, we only allow it commercial. That part I knew that one.
And so what are we doing?
All right.
Yeah, the size of the
Density.
ADUs too. I
mean, for workforce housing.
unlimited size.
No,
On
we've capped the
ADUs?
size
Well,
for
You have
ADUs.
you have
Well, this,
That's right.
Do it.
So
what is it?
what is it?
I believe it is. I'd have to look back through the overlay, but I think it's
No,
1,600.
it's
No?
There's no limit.
there's no,
There's no cap,
limit.
but it
But you
falls
can-
within essentially the building coverage.
It does.
So
It would
that's- so
certainly fall within
When
the
we
building
did the
coverage.
math, essentially we did it as a proportion of if a resident was going to build a single family home, how much would be left over to then build the ADU.
Mhm.
So we left it unaddressed only because it's covered in essentially the
Like
building
what
coverage.
Andrea said, the way
covered
they handle it
Yeah.
throughout the county
Okay.
is they just assume the building coverage, impervious surface coverage rules will keep it within a,
Yeah.
30
slope.
percent.
It's thir-
Oh, I
25.
thought you said 30. It's 25.
that's impervious.
Oh, it's 20. Oh, okay, 25%.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
so it's.
So it's covered, just not explicit.
Not in the same way.
Got it.
Mhm. But that's, I mean, that's why we need to have a conversation. And so for the draft to come forward in terms of affordable housing.
I mean, if we don't have that, we could leave it out and address everything else. We can
Yeah.
add that later if we want to.
Yeah.
You know, if it's going to be a sticking point, it's going to throw a wrench in the whole works. I mean, we could just leave that out and apply all the other
Yeah,
rules.
I would agree with that.
And then, you know,
Yeah.
we could decide later if we want to do that. But I feel like the community
think those
wants
are
to preserve
only for
character of the community
affordable
and
housing.
not be converted into
And I believe,
affordable housing complexes.
and I believe I'm gonna have to double check, but if I can find it quickly, I believe within the overlay, the different types of housing uses like duplex, quadplex, triplex in the suburban urban area are only allowed under workforce housing scenarios.
Correct, and it would need a special exception.
Correct. So those, if we get rid of the workforce housing bit, we get rid of those as well.
Well, okay. So we're saying,
Or you could keep those as a special exception.
yeah, I'd keep it as a special exception. I think we'd
Duplex, triplex, and
Quad.
special exception.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. I was gonna ask another question. Now, they do have rules for their commercial areas as well. Do you want them to be neighborhood scale type? Is that sort of the direction it's going in? Neighborhood
Absolutely.
scale
There's a
commercial?
list within
there's a
the
list
within
of-
the ordinance
Okay.
of the
Now we,
specific uses, and that was the one. They're all pretty neighborhood scale. The one that I pointed out about the outdoor recreation
Mhm.
facility that was a permitted use in the commercial areas without any sort of special exception or anything like that, and just the types of using the county's definition. Find it here.
so would that be an opportunity if it's, are they gonna have mixed use opportunities in those, in a commercial?
They're not. If you
areas?
look at them, well,
The way they are
go back to the map.
located?
Let's go back to the map.
there's
They're
only,
not that many,
Many
commercial
op-
properties
Okay,
Yeah.
to
I
begin
didn't think
with.
so, but I didn't know in the
so,
future if something could get changed
Well, that's always a possibility.
along the highway, you know,
Um,
changed.
but
to
that
commercial.
was the one use that made me go look and see what is that definition and is that something that
Okay.
matches what we typically do. And
Before
Okay.
you go, can you go back to the list that you said you wanted us to look at?
the abuses.
The list that you said might be exceptions or things that you wanted to look at. Like you said, the recreation area was one of them. You talked about the affordable housing was another one.
Yeah.
You talked about,
It's
you had a
there, yeah.
list. Yeah.
Well, it was the. Oh, I think I know what it was.
Yeah.
I think I know what you're talking about. That one.
Yeah.
Those are the different things that I pointed out
Okay.
within
All
the
right.
PowerPoint.
That's all I wanted to see.
Oh, I know what the other thing. I was gonna. How about types of housing? I know in the town we don't allow like modular trailers, that kind of thing.
They are allowed,
So
and they
those
would be allowed in
there.
CC if they came in. It was just plain old CC. That
Okay.
would be allowed. As
Okay.
well. So that's
All right.
consistent. And then using the boundary of the historic district, the original one before things
Yeah.
started annexing
Yes.
in.
Yes,
Yeah,
just
that's what
use
I do.
keep that.
Yes.
Keep the big one.
Okay.
Keep the big one.
So we've agreed duplex
And that would-
triplex would be okay
As a special
as
exception.
a special
Leave them in
exception,
as a special
but
exception.
none of this 18 units.
And I mean, and of course, this will still be a draft. I just want to
Yes.
get the draft moving in the correct direction.
We
the-
appreciate
or
that.
the,
Yes.
to get us closer to that adoption that we need.
And
So-
the character overlay will address a lot of the issues of what the houses I think potentially look like. Is that correct? The historic character. So that's
Yeah, that's the point.
so
That's
that's what we're
what
missing
delineates it.
with this.
Styles,
And you'll
all
have
their
that
character
in
pricing.
April.
We'll have that for April for county.
Okay, because that'll address those unique characters.
It will. But again, we still need to start working
On the
towards
historic.
the expansion
Yeah.
of
Well.
HDCC
Okay.
and the makeup
Yeah.
of that.
Yeah.
would be-
I mean, that's obviously a related topic, but it seems like it's also a separate topic for agenda purposes.
I agree.
Mhm.
Just to keep as clear as mud that we can be,
Or we could just not annex them.
or you
Go
can just
back to
not
that.
annex them and we don't have to have any of these
Yeah.
Drop the
conversations.
whole thing.
Well,
Yep.
I mean,
Well,
I
if
think
we
I
feel
think the
like-
reason they've been annexed is they got special privileges that they didn't get otherwise. And so if we adopted all these, then there wouldn't be a real reason to be annexed, and the community would stay.
Except for the historic angle.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
the public review
Yeah.
process.
So next steps, send it back to committee. Is that what you're saying? Let's just send
Right.
it back
We'll
to
put a
committee.
draft together.
See what we've got
And
after this
we got
conversation.
we got more work to do, but we
Yeah, we
do
do.
want to get it done as quickly as we can because we want to get that protection in place for the community. And if we keep the moratorium in place, then that helps for right now. And if we don't bring any more in, that helps right now.
Mm-hmm.
So those are the two things I think we need to do as a council.
And I'd like to get other communities on board and input, and because it's going to be, we're going to be working town wide. So I don't know what other communities would like us to get with it.
Absolutely, we can help organize
You know?
some of the communities and
We
meet
stay
with designated representatives.
Yeah.
we
I'd
stay
like
in
to have
touch
every-
with the county
as
from
m-
a staff level.
Uh-huh.
Pretty much, I mean, I'm sure there's a meeting I've missed somewhere along the way, or Kate, but we attend the meetings to stay aware of what the processes are going, what's going on.
Mhm.
So I would imagine we'll continue that and then branch it out.
Yeah, it's interesting when we look back at this, like 18 units an acre. Those properties would have to annex into Mount Pleasant and get sewer in order to even be able to do that. So it's kind of I don't know. Anyway.
Okay.
And I'm not sure we
Okay.
would allow it. So anyway.
You ready?
Okay. Is that everything?
Let's see. I think we're
Are we at the end?
Adjourn.
All right.
Thank you.
If that's it, we'll adjourn. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
You got what all over you?
You got some
Tulip popper.
Yeah.